What's good, everybody? How y'all feel? Hey, this is Brian Mazique, aka UniqueMazique. I'm the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and I brought Nelson with me just because. Are you not going to say anything, Nelson? Because
I was just making
what's
sure
going
you were done, man. I know you like to take time, talk yourself up. You know what I mean? Everybody knows I'm here to bring sense and tell the truth on this show after you
on?
go crazy.
Well,
They know, they know. We got informed,
I
loyal viewers on this show
I try
that
not
totally understand the dynamic.
I try not to do all of that stuff you just said because, you know. But see, this is how everything always starts off. It starts off with a flurry of insults, and they all come from New York.
Oh boy, woe is me. Poor Chicago.
All of them come from New York, and I'm so sick and tired of it. I really am, but I endure it nonetheless.
It must be all
Nonetheless,
that wind making y'all cry out there so much in
you know
Chicago.
what?
You always crying.
I actually live in Northwest Indiana now, just outside of Chicago, and I'm gonna tell you, it must be because there's a lot of new construction in the area. But the wind be whipping like wild animals over here lately. I don't know what's
Oh
going
yeah.
on. I need them to build a skyscraper or something because I feel like the apocalypse is happening every week. It's I don't know what's going on. But anyway, we got a show. We definitely do have a show. And
Oh, we got a lot of good things to talk about, man.
well,
Playoffs popping.
a lot of good things to talk about. So I'm gonna tell y'all, I usually don't do this, but I'm gonna tell y'all up front what we dealing with today. So we're talk about the NBA playoffs. We're gonna do something called class or trash. So we're gonna name some people who are either class or who have been either class or trash in the NBA playoffs. And then we're going to talk about the PlayStation 5 specs. We learned a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about what it might mean for sports video games. We're going to talk about the Mortal Kombat 11 roster that has been confirmed. It actually kind of leaked thanks to good old Reddit and somebody who got an early copy. And then we're going to talk about Claressa Shields. Um, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say for right now about that. And then we're gonna get into some of you guys' questions. So please make sure you throw some questions into the chat um, with the hashtag AskUsBro, and we're gonna get to it. So all right, so let's go and jump into the NBA playoffs. I know that's why a lot of people are here. They love it, and I don't blame them. NBA is so beautiful, don't you agree? Um,
Absolutely.
yes, it is.
It's been a great playoff so far too. Drama all over the place.
Yeah, it has been drama. Right now, there's some recent drama because Joel Embiid is out for game 3. So they started Greg Monroe. And early on, Jared Allen was eating Greg Monroe's lunch. And he did not ask for it. He's just eating it. So I just wanted everybody to know that that's what's happening right now. I mean, it's rough out here for Greg. Greg Monroe, it like when you go on NBA 2K, right? If you like, because I make a lot of rosters, right? So I go into all
Hmm.
of the players and stuff. There's an attribute that has, it says intangibles,
Uh
right?
huh.
If I was making Greg Monroe, I would put his, you can't go no lower than 25. That's the lowest it goes. He'd be at 25. Like the dude, he has game, right? He's skilled, but
Yeah, he's
it,
he's like a he's almost like right now I would call him a poor man's Jaleel Okafor. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Where
I don't even know if I don't even know if I'd say that, man. It's like I don't know, man. It's bad. He's like a rich man's Cristiano Felicio, or maybe he's just
Chris.
Cristiano Felicio. I don't know. It ain't good. Whatever it is, it's not working out because he always looks like he really doesn't care. Like if you want to talk about somebody who is literally in the NBA because he's tall and can make a lot of money at it, and that I think is the only reason. Like for real. I think that
I think part of it is the era too. We're in an era now where if you can't hit the three, if you can't rim run, and you can't defend at the rim, as a big man, you almost out of a job in the NBA.
but you know
You
what?
know what I mean?
I feel you on that, and I definitely think that there's some validity to that. But I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with desire, though. His desire is
No,
lacking.
but I think when your skill set falls out of favor, if you're a person who has a medium motor, you can knowing you're gonna get the ball all the time, knowing you're gonna get to do your favorite thing, score, you might be more into it. But if the game goes away from them, you have two choices. You can either adapt or you could collect those checks. And a guy like Greg is not gonna adapt. And that's what I really mean. Whereas if it was more in his favor, he might be more excited to do, it's like anything else, right? Like say you and your friends like going out to bowl
Mm-hmm.
and you don't love bowling,
Mm-hmm.
but you like it enough, and then y'all switch to a new place. In a new place, they don't got the ball you like. You done lost your ball, and they got the messed up floors. And you like, I ain't like it that much anyway. You know what I'm saying? That's Greg Monroe and all of basketball right now.
But you know
He's
what
like,
though? You know what though? And I think that's a really good analogy. And I'm gonna tell you why that's a good analogy. And I'm gonna tell you why it separates people like Greg Monroe from people like me. I'm a competitor. We could be playing marbles. I want to
yeah,
roll my ball farther than you rolled your ball. Whatever, however you win at marbles, I want to do it. And it doesn't matter if you take me to some place where the balls don't roll right, the marbles got a bad color. No matter what, if you put me in a competitive situation, I'm going to be trying to win. And it doesn't matter. So here's the thing. If this is what's happening to you, right? And the game is passing you by. And I actually don't think that's 100% Greg Monroe's thing. So clearly, we talk about clash or trash. So far, Greg Monroe is absolute trash. This is just so I can clarify
yeah. I mean, I don't
that.
know if there's a lot of debate on that
That
chat. Y'all can let us know
it
if y'all
is.
in Camp Monroe,
No,
but I don't think so.
it's definitely trash. But what I'm saying is, his attitude and lack of competitiveness didn't just start in the last 2 or 3 years.
No,
This has
not at all. But
always
this
been
is,
him.
yeah, this is very common amongst big guys, though. And honestly, I think it's the main reason that big guys haven't completely taken over with like all of the versatility, because there's a lot of big guys who are just so physically designed to be successful at basketball. It's stupid for them not to do it.
Yeah.
So, whereas with a smaller guy, everybody 6'3" and under who picks up a basketball wants to get into the NBA. And for all of them, skills and discipline and training is what's going to put you over the top. So it's very, very, very competitive at a very, very, very young age. Whereas when you're that young and you just tall, you have such an advantage. You don't even have to start trying seriously until you get to college if you go to college, or sometimes if you get into a league, whether it's the NBA or some other place.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the big sleepy thing is kind of like a thing for for bigs, and like you said, it does seem to impact big guys more so than anybody else. And I'm saying this, and Greg Monroe is not playing great tonight. They have played much better with Boban on the floor. Greg Monroe right now has 5 points and 7 rebounds. It's on 2 of 8 shooting, and the 76ers were -9 with him on the floor. With Boban on the floor, they're +15. He has 8 points and 7 rebounds as well. So clearly, I think it's about ball movement. It's about defense. This is really kind of crazy though. But look, if there's ever been anybody who technically the game doesn't fit necessarily what they do, it's Boban. Boban literally can't he once you start running high screen and roll a lot with against him, he's popped because he can't switch at all.
Well,
It's a
Boban's a
problem.
pretty skilled guy though. Like
He's
Boban can
skilled on
shoot.
offense very much,
Yeah.
but his lack of athleticism on defense.
The thing is though, he's so tall.
Yeah,
Athleticism has a completely different meaning for him. Right? Like we talked about this before. Depending on how tall you are, your athleticism, it has a different value, right?
yeah, yeah,
So you look at Giannis and Westbrook, we think of them as kind of similar, but Giannis isn't as athletic as Westbrook. He's as athletic as Westbrook once you adjust for his size,
yeah,
right? It's his length that makes him as crazy. If he had Westbrook's actual athleticism, he'd be the greatest player of all time. If he literally jumped as high as Westbrook and ran as fast as Westbrook in his peak, right?
yeah.
So it's the same. So with a guy like Boban, who's 7'13", he doesn't have to be as athletic to get the job done. He doesn't really have a type. It's really, if you're that tall, can you run up and down the court without your ankles popping off? Yes. Okay, then we'll see how far we can take this thing, because you bring a dynamic that people are never used to. So he's the very definition of an outlier. I don't think the game ever passes a true outlier by. The outlier, like an Isaiah Thomas, works as long as they work. And then when one thing goes wrong for the outlier, then they're likely out. And that's
Well,
Boban's scenario.
I think a lot of what you said, the extreme height does
Yeah,
give him a bit of an advantage, obviously. But I think 1989 in the chat has a really good point. He says Boban gives Kyle Korver effort though, and that is 100% true.
100%.
Boban
Yeah.
is not just out there as I'm just a big
No.
body. He gives maximum effort, and without that effort, he wouldn't be able to compensate for it. Without his high skill level, without his high basketball IQ, and without his high motor, he wouldn't be able to compensate for his lack of athleticism, which to me, again, is what separates him from a guy like Greg Monroe, who is
Totally
not
agree.
giving that effort. And
Yeah.
Greg Monroe's no dummy. If you've ever listened to Greg Monroe talk basketball, you know he understands the game very well because he's not a spectacular athlete himself. The success that he's had in the league is based off of a high skill level. He just don't want it like that. You know, he's
I
not a
agree.
dog. He's not a dog. You know what I mean? And some guys are dogs, and he's not a dog. You know, he's 6'11" and skilled, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. So clearly, we've already identified one guy who is class, and I think that is Boban Marjanovic. He is really playing well with his opportunities, and to me, based off of what has happened tonight, he would be the first big off the bench moving forward for me if I'm Philly.
Oh,
I
he's
don't.
absolutely supposed to be.
Yeah,
I think that the issue with Boban is
the minutes.
they
Yeah,
know Boban exactly. They
yeah,
know he's going to be effective. So Brett Brown he's doing a salsa.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He's just trying to bide his time and shuck and jive until he can, so that when he needs Boban, he has access to Boban. Because at 7'6", there's going to be a point where you can't coach him. He's just a very, very big man who can't play basketball anymore tonight,
Yeah.
right? Like his body just
Tonight.
won't do it.
Can't play no
It's
more
like,
tonight.
that's it. If the meter is empty, you got to wait for it to recharge. So, as we said during this time of the broadcast, 76ers are only up 6 on the Nets. And
Yeah.
if you had this playoff matchup at the beginning of the season, you'd have thought this would be a sweep. If you had this playoff matchup at the All-Star break, you would have thought this to be a sweep. Now, the 76ers are one half away with a 6-point lead. That's terrifying for Brett Brown. And I can see why he's being very ginger with Boban, because if he needs that advantage, he needs to have access to it. Because the Nets, as we talked about before in this show, the type of team they are, with a team like Philly, it's almost in the Nets' hands whether or not they win. Because if they just come out and hit 4 threes in a row, that's it. That's the game. Y'all just don't have the tools to catch up. Y'all just literally
Well,
don't have enough shooters.
here's what I think has been a big difference. Somebody who was trending hard towards being trash in this clash or trash segment was Ben Simmons. After game one, game one for Ben Simmons might have been the single worst playoff game for a guy who is considered to be of whatever level you consider Ben Simmons to be. Most people consider him an upper echelon player, right? His performance in game one was one of the worst I've ever seen from a guy who was an upper echelon player. I mean, he was dreadful and just totally not a factor. But since then, you can see he must have somebody got in his ear, something got to him, even though he's still not taking the jump shots that he needs to take, just to take them. He's being far more aggressive. Tonight, he's 2 for 2 from the free throw line, which is a huge part of obviously him being effective because he's going to get to the line at will. And so I think he just overall it's his aggression. Tonight, he's already taken 7 shots, right?
I think when Embiid doesn't play, it's possible for Ben to be aggressive.
Yes.
When Embiid plays, it's very, very difficult for him to be aggressive because those two superstars, even though on this show we think Ben's overrated at this point in his career, his talent and potential might not be overrated, but who he is right now is definitely overrated.
Yeah.
He is not as good as the other guys in his age range who are also considered to be good, in my opinion. But with Embiid on the floor, their spacing is jacked up. Like it's not great. When
But you,
Embiid is sitting down,
mhm.
Ben Simmons can move more into the Antetokounmpo role. And the L's that they take from stuff like JJ Redick not being a great defender, him just basically being whoever offense on JJ when the Nets play, you can take that because you're also now able to get the attempts. And Embiid's a great player. He's a legit MVP level talent right now.
Mhm.
But when he's on the floor, the dynamics of the team are not created for him to succeed right now.
Well,
Because
go
I
ahead.
was going to say, the shooters that they have, they don't have a backup point guard to run that offense, right? So
Mhm.
Ben kind of needs to be on the floor a lot because TJ McConnell can't shoot. So he doesn't solve the problem great either. And against the Nets, he doesn't defend well enough for the Nets because their guards are great, right? So when Embiid is there, he's so great. You have to do the best that you can. And other players work great with Embiid. Harris works, Redick and Jimmy Butler. They work fine with Embiid. But Simmons, it all breaks down. Once you take the issue of Embiid off the floor and you have to play without him, it's almost like Boston last year. You get access to this other team, this kind of bootleg. Now, yeah, I said bootleg Milwaukee Bucks and he gets to play Giannis, and that's a much more fitting role for Ben. I expect him to play better when Embiid's sitting down. The key of whether or not Ben Simmons is class or trash is in the fourth quarter. Is he on the floor? Is he making plays? Is he hitting free throws? That's what it determines. Nobody ever thought he would be trash from quarters 1 through 3. That's some new thing he's been trying out.
Well, honestly, tonight, yes, Embiid isn't playing, but in game two, Embiid did play. And and they both played great. Ben Simmons had a triple double in that game, played outstanding. He was aggressive throughout, especially throughout the first half. He was aggressive. And in the third quarter, when they blew the Nets out, outscored them 51 to 23, set records for scoring. They were both on the floor together and they were both being aggressive. Ben Simmons was creating, he was scoring just enough, but he was getting Embiid involved. He was getting everyone else involved. But the rhythm came and the respect from the Nets defense came from the fact that Ben Simmons was aggressive earlier, attacking earlier. And then whenever you have two players like that who technically their styles don't 100% mesh, what they have to do is they have to take turns. They have to take turns. They can't try to get off together. That's what LeBron and Kyrie did, because at first, a lot of people thought that LeBron and Kyrie weren't going to work because they said, oh, well, they both need the ball. But they had to take turns. The same thing with LeBron and Dwayne Wade. People said the same thing.
Difference is Kyrie and Dwayne Wade and LeBron can all shoot. People think Dwayne Wade's not a shooter. That is an overstatement.
He's
He's
not a
not a great.
three-point shooter.
Exactly. By the
Yeah.
time he was at his third year, Dwayne Wade was considered by many people to be the best mid-range shooter in the league.
One of the best. Top 3, 4, 5, top 5.
Correct. So while it's not 2019 perfect spacing with Dwayne Wade, it was a situation that was figure outable, right? Embiid and Simmons, even with what happened in game 2, that just looked like a team that was hot. That did not look like something I've said they could build off of that. It was more like, yeah, when everybody's playing super well, when all of the shots are going in, it looks better than it is. But the baseline is Ben, and it might be on Brett Brown. You got to figure out something to do with Ben Simmons. And this is why we come back to the free throws, because if he can hit free throws, then it's fixable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if he listen, I wouldn't be surprised if Embiid and Simmons are on the floor. If this series goes 6-7 games, and Embiid and Simmons are on the floor in the fourth quarter, it's going to start fouling Ben. I dare you.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead and beat
believe
us a free throw.
I can see
And
that
that's
happen.
not. Those are the problems. We didn't. The problems was never Ben Simmons is trash. He can't do anything. He's just been terrible for no reason. We don't know why he's been so bad. But the real problems is if this game continues to go close. Let's see what the fourth quarter looks like. Again, Embiid's not on the floor, but the foul shooting will still be an issue.
Yeah.
And when Embiid comes back, that's also still going to be an issue. And if they get past the Nets, and I still say if, because again, the Nets are a team that they shoot so well.
Mm-hmm.
And also Philly is ill-equipped to defend the Nets. They have to build up a lead with Embiid and hold it, because if they're in a close game, they're subject to, if Joe Harris and D'Angelo Russell and Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert get hot, y'all just got to take it. I'll even throw Jared Dudley in there because he can shoot and he spreads the floor.
Yeah.
And if that happens, they're not defending it. In fact, game 2, the Nets missed open shots. And that's why with Philly, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's how we beat them. Like, uh, beat them when they play well. If you can't beat a team when they play well, you're in trouble. And Philly, some people have them going to the finals. So
Yeah.
this is not a sigh of relief for Philly as far as I'm concerned. They in a dogfight. They in a battle with the Brooklyn Nets right now.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not. I don't think they have cracked the code because they have a 4-point lead at the half or 6-point lead at the half, and and the series is tied at 1-1. Now they definitely haven't cracked the code. They got to win in Brooklyn to even get the home court advantage back. So this series isn't over or trending towards over or anything like that. They got to win today, and they would behoove them to win Game 4 as well, obviously.
Correct.
But we'll see. We'll see what
And
happens.
the only reason I bring that up is because that's super disappointing for the 76ers. You're not supposed to be on wait and see against the fledgling Brooklyn Nets.
Well, see, I don't think that the Brooklyn is fledgling anymore. I think that everybody knows that this is a good team. They're a good, solid team. Should the 76ers win? Yes, they should win. This series shouldn't go any more than 6 games. It should not. But the Nets are a dangerous team. And I think that the Nets are good enough to get a game against every team in the NBA in a playoff series.
Sure.
So I don't think it's that like that. But should they win? Yes. And then also when you throw in the fact that your best player is Gimpy, I feel like, that the other thing though I brought up during Game 1, Joel Embiid needs to lose some weight.
Oh, of course. But
yeah.
That's been a struggle for him since he was a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of people didn't believe in him, because the early tells was he was just up in his room eating cheeseburgers all day.
Yeah.
And, when he's injured and he can't work out, that's an excuse to go on the deep end. And the reason I bring all of this up is not about the Brooklyn Nets, even though obviously as a New Yorker, I hope they do well. I hope they win. Hope they go as far as they could go, right? But I don't expect them to win. They shouldn't win. They do have the tools to beat Philly, and this is a bad matchup for Philly. The problem is Embiid having to log serious minutes, take a lot of contact against the Nets, possibly play a long series against the Nets, is a death sentence for Philly against Milwaukee and Boston and Toronto. That is those teams have much more, not just talent, but much more experienced talent across the board.
They're not going to beat either of those teams. They're not
No,
going
I
to beat
don't think so.
They're not going to beat either of those teams.
And two of the primary reasons they aren't is because Ben can't shoot, he can't hit free throws, and Embiid is fat. I agree.
100%. That's exactly. And then not enough shooting. That's another thing. They don't have enough shooting. And it's funny thing about it, and people are going to think that I'm hating on my favorite target when I say this, but they are a much worse team when Jimmy's shooting a lot. Because when Jimmy's scoring a lot, because of the way that he scores, because he scores primarily in isolations with people standing around, and he's taking guys off the dribble, either getting to the line, he's usually doing that because everything is breaking down offensively, or their guys aren't getting, they're not getting anything else from other people. So Jimmy has decided to take it over. And Jimmy in stretches is fine playing in that way. Like at the end of the game, I absolutely think Jimmy is the guy on their team who should have the ball. If you need a bucket down the stretch, Jimmy is the guy on their team who should have the ball. He's the guy who should be shooting. He's the guy who should be, because he has the clutch gene, and nobody else on that team has proven that they have the clutch gene. So he should be doing it. But when he's doing it for stretches at a time, they're at their worst offensively.
And Tobias, they need to figure out Mike Scott and Tobias Harris in this series. Those guys should be shooting more and shooting better.
Oh, absolutely. Tobias definitely should be shooting more. He should definitely be. But see, when you look at what they did in Game 2, you look at the field goal attempts across the board. Everybody was right there in the 10 to 12 field goal attempt range. Everybody was. So that is where the way this team is made, that's when they're going to be at their best. Jimmy only had 10 shots that game. Didn't shoot great from the field. But Ben Simmons was attacking. Embiid was involved. Tobias Harris was scoring. That's the way this team has to operate to be at their best. But there's another game going on. It is the Nuggets and the Spurs. Spurs are up by 8 right now in the first quarter. I still pick the Spurs to win this series. They have the home court advantage at this
I think
point.
we both have Spurs in 6, right?
Yeah. Both have
I think
Spurs.
that was a sensible call. the Nuggets got saved by Jamal Murray going off, which is to be expected. You
Yeah, he's a
expect
good
he's gonna
player.
get hot at some point, but they don't. I mean, honestly, I thought Popovich, if he'd have had DeRozan in to stop the bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
they would have won that game, which
Yeah,
is bad because Denver is supposed to be an extreme home court advantage
yeah,
because of the altitude. It
yep.
always has been a very tough place to play. And they
Mm-hmm.
got some bigger guys out there. Rudy Gay's no spring chicken. LaMarcus Aldridge is a big dude. The Denver advantage should have been greater. I'd be very alarmed if I was a Nuggets fan or in that organization, and I still wouldn't be surprised at all if our predictions were right.
I mean, if you just look at it like this, man, Denver was 54-28 in the regular season, right? But they had a losing record on the road. When you get as high a seed in, because you don't want to talk about extreme advantages. This is a 100% extreme advantage. They were 34-7 at home, and 20. If you're 34-7 at home, you should have more than 54 wins. You know what I'm saying? So that shows you. Yeah, that right there is a dead giveaway, because if you slip at home, you cannot fall back on being a good or decent road team. So now you go to San Antonio, which is also a tough place to play, and you got to win. You got to win a game in San Antonio, and San Antonio's 32-9 at home, and they got arguably the best coach in the game. I'm more in reinforced that I think that the Spurs will win this series. To me, the class of trash in this particular series is Jokic is the trash here, and I know he had a good game, one good game, but for me, he gets the trash award here. And on the Spurs side, I don't know, man. I am really, really liking what I'm seeing from Derek White. Every time I see this
Yeah.
guy, I like him even more. He looks like the class right now, as far
I
as
would
this
go a
particular series.
different direction with it, and this is more predictive.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the class is Greg Popovich.
Okay.
I think the nightmare matchup in this series is Mike Malone versus Greg Popovich, and I think Greg is like going to figure out that offense, and the fact that Greg is not afraid to take twos, and Denver's defense is heavily predicated upon chasing you off the 3-point line. And San Antonio's like, that's fine. We
Yeah.
have DeRozan and Aldridge, two of the best mid-range shot makers in the world. So
Yeah.
good luck with that.
Yeah.
And that's the class or trash matchup for me. And I would definitely say my vote would be going towards Popovich being, even though he made a mistake in game two, Popovich being the class and Mike Malone being in trouble of that trash bag right there.
Yeah. I think if they don't, I think if the only way I think the Spurs don't win this series is if there's some sort of injury. I really do think and I could be wrong, but I
I think
really do.
Denver, similar to the Nets, they can get hot. They have depth, so they
Yeah.
have a lot of shooters. It's really about can they get hot, because San Antonio is very methodical. They're not going to put up a ton of threes. They're going to make a high percentage of their threes, but they're not going to put up a ton of them. So if you get out a lead and you get really hot, you might just be able to blow them out of the building, which you can't do against like a Portland or a Houston Rockets or Golden State Warriors. You have to keep shooting at those teams. But Utah, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, they have to keep games close and possibly win on the defensive end because they don't have the firepower for those big comebacks. The difference being maybe OKC, because their stars are so high level and because their defense can get that good when they're playing great defense, they can just clamp you up better than the other two teams can. Um, Maybe arguably Utah. I don't think they really have the individual defenders. It's like not this relentless athleticism. If you put Gobert in bad situations, he's not as effective. So that's the thing with Denver. They have a window to win the series if they get hot on a
Yeah.
game when they should.
Yeah. I think just about every team in the playoffs, with the exception of Philadelphia, has a chance to win based off that, just the way that the game is played
Well,
at
it's
this
it's,
point.
it's about likelihood though. Like,
Mhm.
is Jamal Murray likely to do that? I'd say yeah. You know what I mean? Or guys like Bynum and stuff like, or Jokic. Is it likely that they can have a game where they shoot really, really well? Absolutely. I don't expect that out of Dennis Schroeder. I don't expect that out of Jerry Grant. If he hits 4 threes out of 6, sure, but he's not gonna pop off for 8. Jamal Murray might hit 8, 9 threes in a game. He might hit 6 threes in a quarter. You know what I'm saying? Damian Lillard might give you 6 threes in a quarter. That's what I'm talking about. Every team doesn't have that ability. That's why I bring it up, because the Nets can do that. Even game one, I was saying about the Nets, they shot all right, but from a volume standpoint, it could have been worse.
Oh yeah.
Like, y'all probably have a blowout on the schedule against the Nets where everybody's hot. That happens a lot in the playoffs where everybody's hot and you just pack it up. You know,
Yeah,
can't
you
deal with
run
it.
into one of those games.
They have
Yeah,
the personnel to do that.
yeah. The Nets have the person,
Denver
and so do
does.
the Nuggets. I think.
I don't think they're gonna do it a whole lot.
Yeah, I think.
They could.
If I'm just flipping through the teams in the postseason, I'm thinking maybe 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe Utah. Utah probably can't either. But there's a lot of teams in the postseason just because of the way the game is played now, who have the personnel to go through to have one of those kind of games. You know, just the way the game. That's just the way the game is played now.
But there's clearly levels to it, though. That's what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Everybody's
and
not
I think
Houston.
because
Yeah.
Denver has so many shooters,
Mm-hmm.
they can do it. Like, you look at Houston, they have like 7 people who can hit a transition 3-pointer.
Yeah.
OKC has 1.5.
One. Please don't give it to him. He does.
Actually, I was giving it to Schroeder.
Okay. Okay.
Paul George and Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure Paul George can do it right now with the current.
No, he's
state
hurt.
of his shoulder.
That was my prediction. Was if he's not healthy, which he clearly is not, then
Yes.
I can't pick OKC.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought that they were getting him enough of a little bit of a rest down the last week of the season, but his shoulder did not respond.
I watched a lot of their games. He hasn't looked right since the All-Star break.
Yeah, but it looks at the worst right now. Like he was functionable. It seemed. Now if it looks like he's having a hard time just raising. You know what I mean? So he's out there trying, but it's not working out. But all right, so let's bounce to the next subject. We could talk for hours about the NBA playoffs. We'll get an opportunity to talk about it again later on. But let's move to we're still going to talk about basketball, I'm sure, at first, but we can talk a little bit of video game basketball because the PlayStation 5 specs, first details of them came out earlier this week. And the highlights of it is it's going to use SSD, which is essentially the way this breaks down is you'll get the games will be processed faster, rendered more information can be rendered at one time. So they used Spider-Man as one of the examples. So the fast travel portion of Spider-Man on a PS4 Pro generally takes about 14 seconds to process completely. But
which I wouldn't know because I always web swing to my location.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right.
I don't know what Rudy Poo Jabroni's
is not using the web
Spider-Man
fast traveling to Spider-Man. You defeat the whole purpose. But with SSD, it was in 0.8 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's a significant difference. So obviously, Spider-Man's not a sports game, but immediately my mind started. Also they're talking about 8K graphics, which to me sounds better than it actually is.
Well, here's what I'll disagree. Here's what I'll disagree with you on. If your PC, you play PC games.
Yes.
If your PC can handle 4K, you know that at 1080p it can play every game on the market at 60 frames per second.
Yes.
So when they tell us about 8K, listen, the world is not adapted to 4K yet.
Right.
And it may never adapt to 4K. It might be like the Blu-ray, where it's kind of a thing that held it down until we went to downloads and streams. Yeah. Right. But if you can play 8K, you know that everything at 4K is going to be able to run at 60, no problem. Maybe even 144, which is what PC gamers have moved on to, which allows higher competitive play. I mean, really across the board, but especially in first-person shooters. It actually makes a real difference. If you have a 144K hertz monitor, that's going to make a difference. And so having games be able to do that at 4K, 60 baseline, that's actually very exciting for every genre. So the 8K itself doesn't matter. I agree with that. But the repercussions of the 8K is optimizing at 4K, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think what I mean when I say that is that selling it as 8K as a feature doesn't mean as much as it sounds like it means, right? Because when you to most people, to the layman, right, when they hear 8K, they're immediately sitting down and they're waiting to see these graphics that are going to be in 8K. So I've seen 4K, and 4K looks amazing. So now what does 8K look like? When in
Here's the thing, though,
actuality,
B. On console, 4K is never at 60. So that makes a real difference, because when a game runs at 60 or above, it looks way better, even at the same resolution.
but what I'm
So
saying is still
yeah,
not, it's still not 8K. And people, especially if you don't understand, so you got to bring it back to a person who's not technical at all, which is the majority of gamers, right? They're not technical in that way where they're going to be able to break down the specs and understand, oh, well, this game's not running at 60 frames per second. They're not, most people don't know that much, right, about it. They see they go with these huge numbers that are advertised to them. 4K, 8K is better than 4K. So now I'm looking for this thing that is going to be, it's going to, what people are looking for, the jump. They're looking for the jump. And if it's just that the game is because I've seen some, what I've seen some side-by-side stuff, right, of the same game running supposedly in 8K and a game running in 4K. The differences are not going to blow the layman away. They're not. They're going.
but
People are going to
I
be
think the difference
underwhelmed.
between 30 and 60 frames is huge.
Yeah, and there are some games running at 4K and 60 frames per second. It's not a
On
lot.
console,
I think
I don't think anything's running at 4K 60 on console,
hmm,
and especially not a consistent 60.
but maybe not a consistent 60. I don't
But
know. I don't know.
that's important. Like
No,
if the game gets cool and it started to turn back
let me
into a
see.
PS3, that ain't good. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure that I'm not sure about. So I can't say for sure.
Yeah, Forza might do it. But again, Forza it's a racing game, so it's not processing the way God of War or Red Dead Redemption or Spider-Man's processing. It's like racing games are designed to be the best looking games you can buy because their job is so linear.
Hmm.
And and in racing games it's actually harder to detect because you're not seeing as many
Okay.
objects, and they all look really good.
Battlefield 1 is 4K 60 frames per second.
There we go, and it looks great.
Hmm.
It's the only thing that looks like that.
Yeah, that one's 4K
and
60 frames per
and
second.
when people see
Actually,
Battlefield, they reacted.
Call of Duty Black Ops 4.
Yeah, but the thing about COD is using preschool graphics to get that effect. Like
Yeah.
it's 4K, but it's 4K the way Overwatch is 4K. It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's a cartoon, right? Like, and I'm not saying COD looks bad,
Right.
but COD clearly, like, it's funny. We were just talking about this in with the Sim Nation chat. I play in Modern Warfare 4, the remaster, and then you play Black Ops. It's like, what have y'all been doing for 10 years? It's the same video game,
Yeah,
and I still like it. I'm
yeah,
not mad at you. I
right.
like it,
Because it
but
works.
there's almost no leap. Like, it's literally the difference between Modern Warfare 4 and Black Ops is a technological filter
Yeah.
of and so again, that's another game where it's 4K, but at a big compromise because they can't give it the same graphics as a God of War. Whereas now, when they say 4K, what they're really saying is we're giving you the best graphics that we can give you, like the Anthem demo, and we're giving you that at 60 frames per second consistently. A layman will be able to see that difference. They might not understand all of the words and all of the order and how it affects every different game, but like Battlefield, when people play Battlefield 1, they was like, this game looks ridiculous for some reason. I think that will be the end of the day effect. But the solid state hard drive, the load times, this is all huge. You know what I think is the biggest factor in the PS5?
What's that?
Backwards compatibility
It's
and
huge.
digital
It's definitely
libraries.
huge. It's definitely huge.
Because now, so you take a guy like me, right? I bought the PlayStation when Destiny 1 came out. I have the white PlayStation from Destiny 1. And it's clearly tired of being a video game system. It don't want to be around here no more. It wants to die. I'm going to keep it alive for as long as I can. But for me, I'm also buying a PS4. And because of the nature of games like Destiny and 2K and, all of these card games like Ultimate Team and the long RPGs, we all have these backlogs of games that we haven't beaten yet. When these new systems come out, we're going to be able to play that library directly from our digital record. And the game is going to run better, load faster, and possibly in some cases, we'll be able to play the 4K versions of those games that weren't working optimally in this generation. And that's super exciting news across the board.
It's essentially like getting remastered, upscaled versions of every game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'll get an opportunity to run every single game that you ever had optimally. So that is
Yeah.
exciting. But
it's the first console that day one I have a reason to get. And I was like, Brian, seriously, I was almost ready to switch to PC.
yeah. Well,
Full
see,
time.
I only switched to PC for sports games and only the offline portions of sports games, because the online community for PC for 2K is kind of dead. So you'll get a little bit in my team, but in like park and stuff, it's not vibrant at all. But if you like franchise modes and stuff, which I do kind of want to get more into it in regards to for PS5, for what they're doing from a technical standpoint, how can it impact a sports game? What different thing I'm imagining certain games, like even stuff that hasn't even been done yet for PS4, like a boxing game, which I've been thirsting for I don't know how long. Dude, a boxing game using 8K, so 4K running at 60 frames per second, whatever it is, SSD. I'm the thought of it just makes me crazy. I'm like, whoa, it's really, it could be something, man. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's planned, what type of things might be on the horizon for launch titles. We don't even know when the release date is. I'm thinking it has to be 2020. That makes
Yeah, I'm
sense to me.
hoping so. And you bring up a great point with boxing games. I'm also going to throw UFC in there. We're both
Yeah.
fans of that game. The thing about those games, it's almost the opposite of a racing game. So a racing game allows you to see this great technological shift because it really doesn't have to do as much as games that have a whole bunch of NPCs and changing backgrounds and all that stuff. A UFC or a boxing game is the other end of it. It gets to have the best looking characters possible
Yes.
because it only has to show you those two characters at a time. So you have the window for the most realistic faces. You know what I mean? The most effects in terms of sweat and breathing and just stacking polygons and stuff like that. And hopefully, well, the loading is going to affect crowds, right? Because that's all information.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll also be able to get those great crowds. I would say actually UFC, I don't know if it'd be 4 or 5 on the new consoles is probably going to be one of my most anticipated games because even if it's like a 2K thing where it's basically the same as the last time, that's one of those games where the graphics alone
Yeah.
will be worth it.
Yeah, I think your graphics alone would be worth it. And just, I mean, the fact that I know that they've already mastered the ability, not, I shouldn't say mastered, but they've already kind of honed in on how to make a fun fighting experience. They've already got that, right?
Oh yeah, it's a good
Just
game.
some things they can do better here and there, but they've already got the core basis of it. Now, if you just pile on even better graphics than they already have, there's a couple graphic faux pas in there, and it's mostly in the DLC because they didn't take time to scale the bodies and the heads properly. Like Israel Adesanya has the head the size of a computer monitor. I mean, and I'm talking about an old school one. I mean, he's his bobblehead style. So that's jacked up. And so the same thing is with Zabit
They
Magomed
were trying to
Sharipov.
display a metaphor.
Is that what? Right, exactly. I guess so, because he's definitely clowning right now. But Zabit Magomed Sharipov, same way. And these are all people that were added after,
Yeah.
in DLC. So those don't look exactly great. But yeah, man, I'm super excited about
I'm
that
very
shit.
excited. A lot of
I
times
mean,
when I hear about the new consoles, I'm like, too soon. I think this console generation is right on time. And what I love
yes.
about it is with the backwards compatibility, we're not getting a population reset. There's not going to be some big toss up between Microsoft and PS4 to see who starts their whole thing all over again. We'll be playing the same old games. They're going to be performing better, and that's going to be great. And things are still looking up for Microsoft too because of what they're doing with the Xbox Pass. I think that's going to be a really big deal on PC and bringing those communities together. And I have good feelings about what the next Xbox is going to be. Not that I'll need one because the PC is basically going to also be an Xbox, but I'm glad that I'll be able to play with the Xbox community if they go that way.
Yeah, I think that'll happen. I definitely think that'll happen. It's the closest thing to cross-platform. Not exactly what people want with cross-platform because they want PlayStation and Xbox, but linking Xbox with PC is, Rocket League's already
Can't
done it.
wait.
So,
Yep.
So it is what it is. But yeah,
So it's Fortnite, right?
Yeah, Fortnite's done it, and probably another game that I can't think of,
Yeah.
but yeah, they've done it. I mean, so man, I'm telling you, man, it's just so many sports games. I'm thinking like, I hesitate to say I want to see what Madden looks like, but EA has shown me that they're not going to mess with that formula so much.
Well,
one of the biggest.
Madden looked like the last Madden for years now.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if you got this Madden, you know what the next Madden's gonna
Well,
look like.
I will say this: they have upgraded visually, but here's the biggest thing about Madden, right? And it's getting this way with 2K too. You can only play football. See, it's worse. It's worse with football than it is with 2K. You can only play football from one view. You cannot play, like, I can choose to play broadcast cam on 2K, and I can do it, and I can get away with it. And may not, it's a slight things here and there, but but playing Madden or playing a video game football, you really can't play the game except for from one view. You have to
See, but
play
I
the
don't
vertical
think
view.
that's the issue though, because the
Well,
thing
I
about
think that's the
football,
first reason why there is no immediate visual disconnection between last year's game and this year's game. Because here we go, straight up and down. This is what you're going to see.
well, I think it's a different reason. Because if you look at NFL 2K5 and all pro football, there's still things about those games that look better than Madden.
Yeah, but it's mostly it's about collision detection, and it's about physics.
Well,
And yeah,
it's about animation
yes,
overall.
that was the next word I was going to say.
Yes, and the thing, and it's about artwork. That's really what it comes down to, is artwork. People think that there's no, and for everybody watching, most of you guys should know I'm a professional artist. That's what I do for a living. So the thing that people get mistaken about realism, they think in order to achieve realism, at the end of the day, you're just taking a photograph. That's not true. When you watch something, say the difference between watching a football game and watching a football movie. What a football movie is trying to do is take the football that happens in your imagination and actually show it to you. And 2K, when they made football games, were much better at that when it came to the on-field stuff and the sideline stuff. I thought Madden was better at the in-between cut stuff. What's that show on Amazon? When every team, the Hard Knocks.
Okay.
The Hard Knocks kind of stuff. EA had a good handle on that, but the other stuff, a lot of that stuff, 2K had a better handle on. So with Madden, if they really want to improve their game, they have to invest in the little things. There's a cookie cutter feel to Madden's artwork, and they just keep shining it up. They just keep adding textures to it.
Yeah.
And that's not what we need. We need for you guys to go into the subtlety. Like that running in Madden looks 10 years old. The way the characters turn.
Honestly, man, it's not even just about the way that it looks. It's the functionality. The functionality in Madden, when you compare it to All Pro 2K8, the functionality is still behind.
Correct, but you can see it.
Yeah, I mean, but you can feel it even more so
sure.
than seeing it. And you know that if you know football, that's not how that goes. That's not how that sequence is supposed to work.
Shout out to Gideon Prime and Chris Smooth, because they have Chris Smooth's a long time ago, obviously, but Gideon Prime, he'll still talk about this stuff. When you see a juke in All Pro or 2K5,
right,
it looks like a juke. Like it literally looks like I'm moving one way, I hit you with the stutter step, you went the wrong way, I went the other way. It looks convincing. That convincingness, art is part of the ingredients that goes in there. It's not all mechanics.
No,
you know what I'm saying? It's not all controls. Part of it is visual. In fact,
absolutely.
The whole thing about a crossover dribble or a juke move is selling the move visually.
Yeah, it's the eye. Yeah.
Correct. So when we look at Madden doesn't sell us visually on a lot of things.
Yes.
It sells us on some things, and it's gotten better, but there's a lot it doesn't sell us visually on.
Yeah.
So with them, I mean, you could give them HAL from 2001. I don't know what kind of supercomputer they need. It doesn't help if you don't have the artwork and the ideas to level up that game's visual acumen. You know what I'm saying? And so they need that. That's what they need. They need to level up conceptually.
I really think they need this, and I think just overall, and we'll move on. But this is a topic for another day, and I think you and I have talked about this briefly before. Um, I really think that a lot of these sports games just need to get to a point where they take a year off. And I'm totally a proponent of a 18 to 24 month cycle. 24 month is better to me. But and then you just have updates in between. And I'm totally a proponent of paying a subscription service for a game the same way they are on some other games, where you literally pay an annual fee, and you pay an annual fee for the game, and that entitles you to every new update. It entitles you to all of the DLC, everything that comes with the game. I would totally G for that, for basketball, for boxing, for MMA, for football, for whatever sport I was interested in like that. I would do that. And then if you I'm not gonna get too much into that because that's a whole separate topic that we didn't plan for.
I agree. That is a topic for another day.
But yeah, that I would totally G for that. So let's bounce on to the next topic, which is still gaming, but we're gonna talk about Mortal Kombat 11. The roster, I got a hold of it. It actually came out because of a Redditor named Daytrawl, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And he got a hold of an early copy of Mortal
I hear
Kombat
there's a
11.
lot of early copies, and I haven't
Yeah,
put my feelers out into the New York fighting game community, but I'd be willing to bet that Bum and Coach Steve and all of the guys who like run Mortal Kombat out here are already playing, copies of that game. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
yeah. It seems like it. So because of that, we had some information leak about the roster, and then we also had some information leak in regards to the stages that are available in the game. So I'm gonna kind of go over it. I know you have the list of it too, Nelson. Now, one character has not been technically revealed as of yet, but because of Daytrawl from Reddit, he was able to confirm who this character is. But and that secret character that hadn't been revealed yet, name is Frost.
Frost, yeah.
She was in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. I think that was the only one she was in. So that's the secret character. Then of course there's Shao Kahn, who is the DLC.
Well, he's a
pre-order bonus. I'm sorry. Yeah, and you get you were, if you pre-ordered, you got Shao Kahn, and you got access to the beta.
Then Shao Kahn looks really good, by the way.
Oh, he looks fantastic.
That's not a character I liked at all. I thought when I played Mortal Kombat 2 and I saw him instead of Shang Tsung, I thought he was a severe downgrade. Haven't liked him ever since. This reinvention of the character in terms of just being brutal, and he looks a little more Elseworlds in his appearance.
Yeah.
Bravo. Good. I mean, they're on fire with this game. Please.
They really are. They really are. I mean, I don't think they've had a misstep yet.
Yeah.
I don't think they've had a misstep yet.
Oh, well, I do think there's a misstep on this roster, but I won't bring it up until the end.
Okay. So we got Johnny Cage, which is a 100% win. One of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters ever.
He's pure gold in Mortal Kombat 10, and he looks, I mean, his fatality is unreal good in this one.
Yes.
If you guys haven't seen Johnny Cage's fatality, look it up after the show.
It is fantastic. We got Sonya Blade, which she got to be there, and Ronda Rousey's did her voice, so there's that. Cassie Cage, which I think is a cool addition.
So far, I'm not in love with what I see from her styles. She was a character I played in Mortal Kombat X, and it looks like I'm going to have to switch. Of course, I don't know until I actually play the game, but so far, Sonya and Cassie, not loving the way their styles look on screen. Okay. Not that it's bad, but it's not.
Doesn't fit you, right? I got you. I'm actually looking at Frost because that's the way I play. So we'll see. It might not be that way, but that's what it looks like. Yeah. I love Jax. Jax is my
guy. Jax is awesome. What a renaissance.
I suck at Jax. I suck at Jax. Jax is the character I wish I was better with, because I pick him because I want to win with Jax, but I never win with Jax. So
speaking of winning with Jax, have you ever seen Justin Wong playing against the little kid?
No.
You got to watch it after the show. So
Okay.
just to set it up for you guys, Justin Wong is playing. Justin Wong is a world famous street fighter. He's the most fighting game fighter overall, world champion in many games. So he's playing online, and he is shooting this kid with a rocket launcher, and the kid is on voice chat complaining. I'm not going to say anything else, but this video is one of the best video game videos of any kind ever, and is a must watch. It is.
Okay. We'll
If you
check it
ever
out.
needed to learn about fighting games, that video is like a 3 minute all you need to know tutorial about who you are in relationship to fighting games.
Okay, I definitely check it out because I never seen it before. And we got Scorpion, who is obviously he's gonna be in every he's gonna be in every Mortal Kombat ever. Noob Saibot is coming
He
back.
looks excellent.
Yeah, he looks good.
Like the way he's throwing down the teleportation portals and doing his moves
Mhm.
out of that, punching you into the floor, portal opens up, you go to the floor, you come down twice and then slam down real hard.
Yeah.
Like that stuff is awesome. Very imaginative.
I dig it. I really love playing with Baraka in the beta. He was.
I hate that character with everything. That
I love him. I love
I
him.
hate him so
I love
much.
him. I love him.
He looks good, but
Yeah, he looks good. He. If you play somebody who's really good with Baraka, it feels like a cheat code sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, he's nasty. He's very close to overpowered for somebody who masters him. Yeah. He's close. Raiden. I love Raiden. I'm not that good with Raiden though. Well, at least not the last few versions of Mortal Kombat. I'm not that good with him. Early on, the early versions, I was pretty decent with him, but not now.
Yeah, he was my main character in Mortal Kombat 1 and part of 2. Then I switched to Kung Lao.
Okay. Jackie Briggs. I'm not that familiar with. I don't think I've played with her before.
It looks like they've done a better job with her than they did last time in terms of her fighting style.
Yeah.
Some people a little iffy on the look. She has some good costumes that like look really good on her.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to see more from Jackie before I'm into her.
Yeah, yeah. Then we got Sub-Zero. That's my dog. He's in there. I love him. Kano. I had a pretty good run with Kano, I think, in 3.
My buddy, Coach Steve, aka Insane, he's a Mortal Kombat tournament player. Mm-hmm. Gets top 8s multiple times over. I think he got top 8 in Evo in, I don't know if it was Marvel or Mortal Kombat, but I played him online and he put me in the corner with Kano. I could not do anything. It was horrible and wonderful at the same time.
Yeah. It's admirable. And then we got Cabal, who I dig a lot.
Cabal looks really good. I'm curious about him.
Yeah, Liu Kang. I love a lot of Mortal Kombat characters. So
they do a good job. Liu Kang's never been my favorite. I always thought he was one of the weakest kung fu characters. Did you ever see this video they did of translating the Mortal Kombat voice lines?
No.
Okay. If you guys got kids watching the show, put the earmuffs on real quick. So he jumps across the screen. He goes, "I can throw the what?" He said, "I'm the one with the dick in the butt."
What?
It's hilarious. He says, "I'm not the one with the dick in the butt."
Well, hey, maybe Liu Kang should be my favorite character.
He's just letting you know what he's about.
Right. Me and him have something in common. So here we got Kitana.
She looks really good. She looks really good. Her face looks a lot better too.
Yeah. Kung Lao. Then we got Jade. She looks great. She looks great.
1989 said Baraka is for off-ball defenders.
Yes, he is. And I am an off-ball defender, so it matches. It matches. My man Cash Nasty got a t-shirt that I need to get. When I saw him in LA at the 2K event this year, he had a t-shirt on that says "I play off ball." I was like, I need it. I need it, bro. You need to, you need to get that shirt to me. So then we got Scarlet. She has some
Scarlet looks amazing.
Yeah, she's got some nasty
blood magic.
Yeah. That's some nasty
I'm gonna at least try her because I can't pass up a blood mage in Mortal Kombat. That's just too good.
Yeah. Then we also have Aaron Black. Let's see, Devora. We get
Devora also. She was
yes,
great last game.
yeah,
Good character and creative, even more creative now. That's another character. I mean, for all of these characters, you should watch the fatalities, but some are particularly special. And her fatality is the most disgusting,
yeah.
nightmare fuel fatality out of like all of them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Then we got Kotal Khan. I didn't see much of that one yet. I didn't see much of him yet.
I watched him because my brother played Kotal Khan in the last
Yeah,
game, so we sat down and watched his videos. He looks pretty good. He's not my cup of tea, but he's probably gonna play him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now my favorite character so far is
Brother man
definitely
Garrus.
Garrus. I'm thinking about incorporating his line as a tagline in some of my videos.
Which
Come
line?
thunder, come lightning. Boy, that's what you say when you dunk on somebody. Boom! Come thunder, come lightning. Or if you dunk on somebody and then the next trip down you hit somebody with a 3.
Yeah.
Come thunder, come lightning.
And the next one come lightning.
Oh my god, I loved it. It's awesome. Now, Collector's a new character.
Yeah, he looks good. I like very good monster character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Centurion.
Yeah, who's
Is
another who's a new main god character elemental. Okay, before I go into the fail on this character list,
Yes.
do you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay, so you played Mortal Kombat 10 and you played Injustice 1 and 2, right?
Yes.
There's a style that they've been very good at in Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
And they do not have a character representing this style.
Who is it in Injustice and Injustice?
Is in Injustice is Bane.
Okay.
He would be the main one. They also have other characters that have played like Bane, but Bane is the main one. And then in Mortal Kombat before it was Ferritor.
Okay.
He was their bruiser, super armor grappler character. They don't have it this time. That guy who charges you down, gets you in the corner, hits you with slams. This is almost like Street Fighter coming out without a Zangief and totally inexcusable. That's a whole kind of player that's not going to be able to play day one.
Do you think that you don't think Garrus is somewhat similar?
He doesn't. No, Garrus looks more like that's a part of his style, but he's not a pure bowl you over, super armor, grab you up.
He's not he has a lot of grab mode because I watched an extended video of him.
Yeah, I watched the long stuff with him too.
And it looked like,
but also he's not big enough for that too. Like that character has to look the part.
You got to take the screen up. You got to.
Yeah, he got a neck. You ain't supposed to have a neck when you have that style.
Yeah,
you know
They don't have
hunched over, big arms, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, they don't have a big nasty brute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Garrus using too much magic for that. You know, Garrus, it's a lot of magic in Garrus's place, and I like the way Garrus looks. He looks cool.
It's just,
but he's not satisfied in that. And as a fan of the fighting game community, I know specifically players who are going to be like, "Who do I play on day one?" I'm sure they're going to have that in the DLC and in the combat pack. But day one, guys like Gur should have had access to those characters.
Yeah. Come thunder, come lightning.
So I'm real curious to see who Gur. He's a Mortal Kombat pro player from New York. See who he's gonna play and stuff like that. Because I think that was a ball drop. Even though I love every character that's on here, that's missing. Also, this is not as important, but they've also done a really good job with the bow and arrow characters in Green Arrow and Kung Jin. Really good job with those characters. They were day one very strong, and there's no representation for that style. Again, I imagine that they'll be in the combat pack somewhere, but those feel like day one archetypes that should be here above a few of the characters that are a little bit of doubling up.
I totally agree with that. I 100% agree with that, and I don't 100% agree with anything you say except for get out of the way of that truck. But I 100% agree with that. That is a beautiful statement. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem.
All right. We're going to move on. And we're going to talk. To be honest with you, I had to hold myself back because I wanted to talk about this first.
Before you jump into that, there's a chat question I want to answer real quick, especially since this is from my man D Johnson. It's just a quickie. It's not at me, bro. What had better physics, Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter? Historically, it's been Street Fighter, but NetherRealm since Injustice has improved the
Killer.
feel of their games every single year.
Killer.
Right now, I think it's more satisfying to play another Realm game, but I have to get my hands on Mortal Kombat 11 to give you a full answer. If I'm most likely going to have it day one. If there's time, I will definitely like to do a review on this channel for that game, and we can both go into it, do a two-man version of it, and we'll talk about that when we do.
Killer. I'm trying to tell you, D Johnson. Anybody who's watching this show who is like you kind of dig fighting games, but you haven't played them in a while. If you're going to go and pick one up, make sure it is another realm for your indoctrination back into the genre. Because to me, I don't think anybody is doing it. I'm not saying all of the fighting games that are not NetherRealm suck, because that's not true. Because if you really liked Marvel versus Capcom and that whole type of series, or Street Fighter, you'll still like that. You'll still, if you liked it before, you'll still like it. But to me, NetherRealm has taken the old Mortal Kombat feel and just made it 50 million times better with
100%.
some new bells and whistles, some new depth to that whole functionality. And to like Injustice, dude, I'm trying to tell you, when I first started playing
That's still
Injustice,
a good game.
it's
That's still a good game.
Part one is still good. You know what I'm saying?
And
Let alone
the thing
two.
about it, there's 3 games that released in a pretty complete state when it comes to fighting games, and I'm going to talk about 2 of them. Mortal Kombat, Dragon Ball Fighters is a really good game overall, especially if you're a Dragon Ball fan. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, that's like automatic.
It's automatic. It's automatic.
You got to get that game. The other one is Guilty Gear XR. Guilty Gear is a complete fighting game. It's got this big story mode. It's got all the tutorials you need. Every character is imaginative and excellent. The artwork is fantastic. The music, if you're into that kind of rock music, which obviously I am, guitar player, it's excellent version of it. It is an excellent, excellent game. If you don't play Guilty Gear, it's just because fighting games aren't your thing. But if you're a fighting game person, it pays to buy Guilty Gear just to have it.
Now you know what? I kind of disagree with that, because Guilty Gear is like you know what Guilty Gear is to me? Guilty Gear is instrumental jazz to me, right? Like, I really appreciate instrumental jazz, and I appreciate the brilliance that it takes to really, really make good instrumental jazz. But if you gave me the option, I wouldn't listen to it.
Well, here's the thing. That's why I said if you're a fighting game person.
Well, I like fighting games.
No, but you're not a fighting game person. Because every fighting game person plays Guilty Gear and is just like, oh, this is like ridiculous. Like, why doesn't everybody play this game? This game is how fighting games should be. Like, that's pretty much. I think
that fighting game fans are segmented into different types, and I don't think that all fighting game fans are the same in terms.
Well, I'm speaking from the perspective of a guy who is reasonably deep into the fighting game community. So I'm talking to tournament players who play Tekken. Well, and again, they're all tournament players, right? So they are segmented in terms of what games they play, but they're not segmented in terms of how hardcore they are. I don't think a super casual fighting game fan needs Guilty Gear. But if you're a serious fighting game person, you're missing out if you don't get Guilty Gear.
Yeah, I mean, because
with Mortal Kombat, I think if you're a casual fighting game person, you need Mortal Kombat. Like, that's the one you should get.
Say, like, I put it like this: anybody right now, do a YouTube, do a Google search, and look at several different lists of the best fighting games of all time. Just look at several different lists, and Guilty Gear doesn't come up on hardly any of them. So, and I'm not just talking about one list. I'm talking about a number of lists.
Let me flip it. Go watch the Evo finals for Guilty Gear.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's
here's the thing.
The fighting game community is bigger than just the competitive. Now, maybe not. I think where I could agree with you at is the competitive fighting game community.
Well, but what I'm saying is this: I'm not talking about the people playing. I'm talking about the people watching.
But those are still competitive fighting game guys. They're just not good at it.
Not necessarily true in this sense. Guilty Gear does not sell the numbers to dominate Evo if it's only the people who competitively are interested in Guilty Gear. What's happening is people from all other fighting games. This happened with King of Fighters too, and I can't stand King of Fighters.
Yeah, I'm not a
But the
fan of that either.
finals, right? Because I don't like the characters. But in terms of the quality of the game, it's very, very, very high. And again, any fighting game person will tell you that. It's just I don't like the art, I don't like the music, and it's not a complete video game. I'm saying Guilty Gear is a complete video game, great art, great music, but as a fighting game, also super excellent. And that's why those Evo finals are literally everybody comes over to watch it from all of their games because the excellence of the game comes out. The problem with Guilty Gear, it's very hard to become average at that game. Most people who touch Guilty Gear will be scrubs. So that's why I say it's a good game to own, especially since you can get it like super cheap now. But if you're a fighting game person, not if you're a super casual fighting game person. I'm talking about if you genuinely like fighting games, if you watch fighting game streams, if you read information about fighting games at all, like when you're not doing stuff, if that's your thing, you're missing out if you're not messing with Guilty Gear. But I'm not talking about super casual people.
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat I think super casual, like honestly, and it does the numbers to justify it. Pretty much, if you don't buy Mortal Kombat, it's because you hate Mortal Kombat. If there's any part of you that is entertained by Mortal Kombat, you should be satisfied with the purchase.
yeah, I don't know. I would disagree with that. I've been playing fighting games for 3 decades, and so several different series, and we all have our own favorites. And I always shy away from statements that say if you don't like this, then you're not that. So I always erase those
Well,
statements.
no, I wouldn't make that generally. I just make it about you.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just
keep your eye out for them at me, bro. Mortal Kombat lobbies.
yeah. I'm not gonna be in them because I already know where my
Oh, what?
limitations lie. I already know where my limitations lie. I'm a one character kind of guy, and I'm an intermediate at that one. So, but yeah, all right. So let's move on into I really wanted to talk about this because I think it's multifaceted, right? So, for anybody that's not aware, Claressa Shields is, by most accounts, one of the top 5 to 7 women's boxers in the world right now. There's some people who are far less known than her, who, if you ask boxing people who watch a lot of boxing and know more than just the people who are presented to them, they'll say that from a skill level standpoint, there are some people who are better, right? But she's an Olympic gold medalist, and she has a contract with Showtime. She's one of the like I think maybe 2 or 3 women's boxers in the world right now who actually have a network deal. So Claressa, she just won she just unified the women's middleweight title by beating Christina Hammer by unanimous decision. It was pretty lopsided. So she's a very, very good boxer. But she made a comment shortly after, a couple days after she beat Christina Hammer, and she said, I box men, I spar men all the time. I drop guys, I bust guys' nose up. I'll beat Keith Thurman Jr. up. Keith Thurman is the current WBA welterweight champion. And she said that she would um, give Gennady Golovkin, former middleweight champion, a run for his money. So my first response to that comment was, you're out of your mind. You're totally out of your mind. Now, I've watched Claressa Shields get dropped, literally get dropped by a female opponent, by a women's boxer, right? Women's boxer. So which tells me you can be touched. And if you're getting dropped by a women's boxer who obviously has less upper body strength than a male boxer, and lower body strength in a boxing standpoint in that particular situation, you're getting dropped there. You're gonna get knocked out cold against a man boxer, a male boxer in that situation. So that's my first response, right? And I'm holding on to that because that is the case. But my second thing is this: Claressa Shields is single-handedly trying to carry women's boxing into a place of respectability. She's single-handedly trying to be the one, right? So she has watched so many people in combat sports specifically gain a certain level of notoriety by saying outrageous things, right? So she watched Conor McGregor do it, and even probably to a more you know, an easier to connect example. She literally watched Becky Lynch in WWE take herself from being a low level, from a popularity standpoint, personality, to somebody whose personality is through the roof. She's one of the top merchandise sellers in the WWE. And why? It's because she completely flipped her personality and became extremely brash. She started calling herself the man, which to me is always kind of weird, because we're talking about, we're in the middle of a women's revolution and we're supposed to be talking about equality, but the way you elevate yourself is to call yourself a man. Okay, whatever works. Whatever works for you, it's fine. But this is what Claressa Shields has watched, and this is a formula that she's watched work. And so now here she is saying that she's calling out guys. And so this wasn't something that was taken out of context, because if you look at her Twitter account, she's retweeting people who are talking about it. Then she's following it up with tweets saying, y'all think I'm playing. I can beat guys. So to me, that's how I kind of wrap it up. I would love to hear what you have to say about this, Nelson.
I mean, I guess I don't know her heart, but from the outside looking in, this looks clearly strategic, because she's not really, just because she's not trying to set up a fight.
Yeah, I mean, she can.
So you talked about being competitive. I mean, you can. All you gotta do is find somebody to pay for it.
Yeah, but it's not. Nobody will sanction that. They're not going to sanction that.
And maybe not in America, but you can find a place to have it happen. And
I haven't seen it yet.
But here's the thing. And I'm not disagreeing with you that the likelihood is that it would not happen, but she's not trying to make it happen. She's not really beating that drum. She's not saying, I can beat every woman and these dudes, so you need to, find me people on my level. She's just talking. And when you're just talking, that's for the retweets and the shares and blah, blah, blah. As an idea, it seems pretty far-fetched from the outside looking in, for all the reasons that you stated. And I would say that when it comes to physical competition, boxing is one of the last places I would want to go.
Yeah.
I know a woman who was a boxer, and she felt the same way as Claressa, that she could beat guys because she had done well and hurt some guys who were like at a lower level. But she hadn't been fighting at the high level. And what I was trying to explain to her was, there's a switch that gets flipped. And the thing about it is, as guys, we see it all the time. When you're playing people in the park versus people in the rec center, people in the rec center versus people in maybe LA Fitness, and then people in LA Fitness versus people in LA Fitness or the Y who played college ball, and are still young.
Yeah.
And there's a difference, right? There's some games where you're like, nah, I ain't running with them fools.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to get hurt out there today.
Yeah.
You have a respect for it because there's levels to the game. And the thing about this is why I think men's athletics, it's hard to have it compete with women's athletics, except for individual sports or non-contact sports. Because when you look at men's athletics, you're watching the raising of that level until, from a mathematical standpoint, you're watching the best of the best. The people who run the fastest, jump the highest, lift the most, do things the fastest, have the fastest reaction time, and the biggest bodies, right? So even though there might be a skill competition where there's women in the WNBA that can shoot better than men in the NBA, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so.
Definitely say so. If I had to bet between Diana Taurasi and Russell Westbrook in the three-point shooting contest,
I got D all day.
All day, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that in a competition of physical feats,
Yes.
the levels go so high that if you've ever played with an elite level athlete in anything, and when I say elite level,
I'm not talking about your best friend who could run really fast in high school. I'm talking
right,
about the dude in the state that everybody knew his name, and everybody knew that in a race, nobody else in the state got a chance running against
correct.
this guy.
So, like for instance, my brother, he was a track guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was MVP of his track team,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in the newspaper for being a track student athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was good enough to get covered, and he'll tell you in a heartbeat there was a guy on his team that was just different. And
Mm-hmm.
then, and hey guys, I'm not being politically correct here. I'm just repeating what he said.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Oh no, when we race them Africans from the other schools, even Sammy can't beat them. There's something different about the Africans."
Right. Yeah. I mean,
And,
it's
and
from when
we're
we talking about
Afro-Panamanian, so it's
dog.
okay.
When
But
you're talking about
it,
long distance running, man, the proof is in the pudding, man. The Kenyans consistently, the Kenyan men and the Ethiopian women consistently dominate long distance running.
right.
There's a reason.
And when you compete against these people, when you're in these people's presence, you're like, whoa, that's special.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's no way that she's overlooking those levels and that aspect reasonably. But it's possible because
No,
athletes
I think
have no concept of their limitations sometimes.
they don't, and that's what makes them great. That's what makes them great. It is what makes them great because you have the audacity to believe that you can do that. That's part of being great. Part of being great is having because everybody's not great. Most people are not great. Having the audacity to believe that you can do something that nobody else gives you a chance to do is part of what gives you it's what facilitates your greatness, right? But logically speaking, I have I had this point, but somebody in the chat kind of beat me to it. 1989 says this. One of the biggest issues that I have with what she's doing is that she's essentially kind of low key, passively reverse bullying these guys, right? Because here's the thing. You're calling out Keith Thurman. You're calling out Gennady Golovkin. If any other fighter called them out, they could say, hey, call my promoter. You call your promoter. Let's set it up. I will knock you out. I will end you in 5 seconds. Your kids ain't going to know your face when I get done with it. And everybody be like, oh, yeah, let's go. If Keith Thurman comes back and says, Claressa set it up, and I bet you I'll bust a braid off the top of your head. Everybody's going to be like, dude, Keith, what? You going to bust a braid off her head?
This is the proxy violence theory, right? So the proxy violence method is basically I can commit violence against you by committing an action knowing that everybody's going to jump you.
Yes.
Right? The authorities are going to step in and deal with it.
Yeah.
So I'm actually, being substitute violent without myself having to be guilty of any kind of assault or crime.
Yeah.
And this is something you see it all the time with kids, right? The younger sibling will mess around with the older sibling until the older sibling pushes the younger sibling on the ground, finally getting fed up because they're kids and they ain't got no patience.
And then who gets yelled at?
Right. Well, they hit the floor. What happened? What's going on in here? He pushed me.
Yeah.
Right. Proxy violence.
Yeah.
Learn this at a young age.
Yeah.
This is just a high level version of it. I wouldn't go as far as to call it bullying because there's nothing happening to Golovkin and Thurman. They have the option to ignore this and move on because she's not trying to set it up.
But we use that term all the time when we're talking about social media. We use that term all the time. I mean, and I'm borrowing this term from society. Social media bullying. Bullying on social media is coming at someone and constantly and berating them or calling them out,
and that's
trying to intimidate them or whatever.
Because I think her from a competitive standpoint saying that she believes that. What did I say? I don't know what's in her heart. If she really believes that, and she's like, "Hey, we can never set it up," but that's my belief. Watch my fights and tell me I can't beat them, and that's where it ends. Then it's not bullying. If she's going around like, hey, those guys are really trash. If they were women, they couldn't hang with me. And she's going on and on about it. And there's no solution. So at the end of the day, you just have this endless cycle of her going
Well,
from
it
being
just
in a
started though.
challenging mode to berate. Well, it's not bullying yet, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. She's just talking crap. And I don't think talking crap is bullying at day one. It depends on where we go from here.
Well,
And
see,
the kind of crap she's talking, she didn't say anything disparaging about her character. She's using them to prop herself up. I don't think it's admirable, particularly because there's no competition involved. But I don't think it's bullying at this point.
and I would agree with your definition of bullying, but that's not society's definition of bullying right now. Society's definition of bullying is saying intimidating or disparaging things about a person, calling them out in this way, especially when they cannot or are discouraged to respond. That's the
Right.
key, because
But
they
even
are
according to that, I don't think
discouraged
this
to
is
respond.
necessarily disparaging if
Well,
that's her belief.
what makes it that way for me is because they are discouraged to respond, because they are somewhat handcuffed, and to me,
Well,
that's
I think in that case, society's bullying them. I
what.
don't think she's
Regardless,
doing the bullying yet.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like it matches the way society defines the term at this point, which I do think it's an overused term, 100%. But I do think that it matches the way society defines it. But the thing of it is just that she if you ever, because I have followed Claressa for a long time, and as a matter of fact, I've spoken with her manager on multiple occasions. I've spoken with Christina Hammer's manager on multiple occasions. What's going on right now is that the one of the biggest things behind the feud that she had with Christina Hammer was that Christina Hammer is going about her popularity in a different way than Claressa. Christina Hammer is yes, I'm an above average fighter, but I'm also injecting the sex appeal aspect, because I understand that the majority of the people that are watching this sport are guys, and I'm betting on the fact that if they think I'm pretty, then I'll be more popular, right? Claressa's not going that direction. As a matter of fact, she resents it, right? So that's an issue for her. So she's usually angry, it appears. All that she generally appears angry or frustrated on almost every interview that you see of her. And I think it's because she's like, I work my butt off to be good at this sport. I work my butt off. I work hard. I work just as hard as these guys. I work harder than some of these guys to get to a certain level, and I'm not being respected. Look at the fact that, I mean, I don't know how many people know this, but women's boxing isn't even 3 minute rounds. It's not even 3 minutes, 2 minute rounds. So it's a absolutely downgraded version of the sport that most people who watch boxing watch. It's downgraded from the amount of money that they're paid, and I don't have a beef with the amount of money that they're paid, because that money has to come from the interest. The interest level in women's boxing just isn't there. You can be mad about it, you can have a problem with it, but you can't make people like stuff. If they don't like it, they don't like it. It don't mean that they hate it, to quote Common. So I mean, it's just it's that's just what it is. So I feel like she's very I think she's kind of pulling out all the stops now, trying to do something brash to change the game.
Well, and the thing that I think you kind of hit on it with the Becky Lynch allegory is Becky Lynch, by calling herself the man, is inadvertently demeaning what female wrestlers are bringing to the table.
Yes.
And, I think we spoke a little bit about that wrestling match. I thought it was a really good match. I thought they had some really nice spots.
You talking about
triple
WrestleMania?
Threat. Yeah, WrestleMania triple threat.
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, but I thought they have reason to believe that they can put off a good enough show without referencing guys at all.
Yeah.
And you don't see this in women's tennis. In fact, Serena Williams, the very greatest female tennis player ever, be very quick to say, no, don't put me in this male versus female conversation. I'm the best at women's tennis. I'm not a male tennis player.
Now, she's had it before, though. She has had it before.
This is where she is now, after all of her accomplishments, after where she's been. After maturing. And she's trying to she talks about women's tennis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she admires and respects men's tennis, but she's a female tennis player.
Well, you know,
And
and
she,
it's funny though, because some people have different takes on that. Like I just saw a comment today from Roxanne Modafferi. Roxanne Modafferi is a mixed martial artist, and she said today, I hate the term women's mixed martial arts. She says,
Mhm.
I am a mixed martial artist. You do not have to put women ahead of it. Um,
Well,
I
that's the reason that's silly is because
No,
that's
but I don't. I'm not saying that I agree with that. I'm saying this isn't a perspective. This is a perspective that many female athletes have. They don't like the designation, so
well,
it's kind of
but they're
segmented.
factually wrong though. The reason they're factually wrong
Hmm.
is because women's is a category. So it's like category like lightweight. We call them lightweight MMA fighters, not as an insult because they're not as big as the other people, but because that's the regulation that restricts who's able to participate.
Hmm.
So people are fans of different types of fighters for different reasons,
Yes.
right? So for me, my favorite to watch has always been middle and light heavyweight. That's been primarily when there's a champion and it's going on what I found the most exciting. Not without fail, sometimes other divisions have been more exciting. But generally, that's where my favorite fighters come from the middleweight and light heavyweight guys. Light heavyweight, middleweight, men's division fighters. That's
Hmm.
the name of the division. You don't get to take off division names because you don't like what's surrounding it. That's ridiculous. That's frankly idiotic.
Yeah.
If I were to say tennis is on and I really want to see Serena Williams and I go to see it and there's Roger Federer fighting, Rafi Nadal
Yeah.
or Djokovic, I'm gonna be oh no,
That's not
this
what I wanted to say.
it's
But
not what I wanted.
but
It's telling me where to go.
I think
And you don't say that kind of thing when you're on top.
right. Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. I think what it is it's essentially um, a product of a feeling inferior. Because when you feel inferior, you don't want anybody to call out your classification because you feel a certain type of way.
Well, I
And
think if the classification doesn't matter, right? It's like if it matters. So, for instance, if I say, "Oh, he's a black banker," well, why are you bringing up the fact that he's black? That has no effect on my interaction with him as a banker.
exactly,
I just want to know if he
exactly,
can take care of my money, right?
exactly, exactly. But
If you say it's
and
the
it
same
isn't
thing if
as
you say
if and it
he's a
isn't that it
tall banker or he's a
right.
short banker or it's a female banker, then none of that would
None
matter.
of it matters because it's not as if because he's a black banker he can only service black clients.
Correct.
So in this
But if you say
situation,
it's a black college, well, that matters now
it's
because it's
different
a
because it's a
category.
category. It's a exactly,
Correct.
and that makes 100 that makes all the sense in the world. But like I said, I think that thought process comes from a feeling of inferiority, and it's not just women's athletes that feel that way. It's all people, anybody who belongs to a group that has been made to feel inferior. You will sometimes get that level of a response, depending on the person. You will sometimes get that type of a response. I think that's I think that's part their fault. I think it's part society's fault because this is the circle or the box that they've been put in. So as a self-defense mechanism, they come out with those types of comments. But I don't think it's I don't personally think that women's mixed martial arts is a bad term. I think that, like you said, it's a category. This is it, when I'm going down the list and I'm looking at a card, right? Women's flyweight, men's flyweight. I don't think that the women's flyweight fight sucks. No, it just tells me that two women are going to fight.
Right.
That's all. That's all it tells me. It doesn't tell me anything about the quality or the fight. It doesn't tell me any of that. It just tells me that two women are about to fight. That's it. You know, but I'm not that way. You know what I mean? I'm not that way to a point where that's something that's a deterrent for me. So it's just very interesting. The whole Claressa Shields thing is interesting. I do think she absolutely has a plan. I don't know that it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to work or not because I don't think that we haven't seen the star yet to come
Well, that's
along.
what it comes down, and that's where it becomes really harmful to have this, inferiority complex where you need to make claims and go to an impossible fight to bring attention.
Yeah, and
Because
it seems desperate to me, and that was my biggest problem with it.
we've seen the model, Ronda Rousey. She advanced the sport tremendously, so that now other fighters like your Nunez and Rose and all of the great women's mixed martial artists that are involved in the sport now have a platform to where many of them are interesting. Many of them have a growing fan base because of the ground that Ronda set, being dominant and having a personality and being able to sell fights.
Yeah.
You have to take the responsibility, whatever your sport is. And I said this is something that actually relates to our other conversations when it comes to esports. And this is what I was telling the 2K community. You have to take the responsibility to get views, to get people interested in watching you play the game. All of this 2K League stuff doesn't matter because they're throwing money at the problem thinking that's going to solve it. And last time we checked, they had 3,000 views.
Now, you're going to find a route to disparage this league every episode.
That are working for those organizations and playing in those games that I'm rooting for to do well. I say this not to insult or disparage, but because I don't want them to get distracted from what the actual task is. The task is to make this successful from a spectator standpoint. That's the same thing with women's boxing. That's your task. Starting trouble with men's boxing and putting yourself into a conversation that, like you said, is never going to get sanctioned. It's never going to happen. I don't know what that is, but it's not the way to sell the fight.
No, it's not the way to sell the fight. It's not the way to sell the fight. It may be the way to sell herself, but I don't think that it will advance the sport.
But not as a fighter.
And well, I think it'll sell her as a fighter, but I don't think that it will, because here's what'll happen. Here's what'll happen. If she keeps this up, right? What's going to happen is there's going to be a few more people. And when I say a few, I mean a few 5, 10, 15,000 people who are more interested in her next fight because they're going to want to watch who is this girl who says she can beat guys.
I think they're going to put her name into the YouTube search bar and be like,
either way, the interest is there. And if the interest is there, then her marketability increases. And even if you have people who already had Showtime, right? Because she has a Showtime deal, but they just weren't watching her fight because they weren't interested. But now they know her name. And now they're like, okay, so who is this girl that says she can beat guys? Let me see what she's like. Even if they watch it like, yeah, okay, whatever. Even if they watch it in that way, they're going to watch. And that's her plan. I'm sure it should be her plan. I hope she's not just talking just sincerely, because that would be ridiculous. I'm trying to give her a break, basically, and hoping that there is some rhyme or reason to what she's talking about. Because if not, then it's just flat ridiculous, and there's nothing that I can do about it. There's nothing I can do to help her. So.
Yeah, I think there are many more productive ways to sell the sport than the kind of thing that's not going to amount to anything. That's what it really comes down to. When you look at the people who are successful at selling fights, it's building towards the fight. Unless she's going to fight Thurman or Golovkin, it's not building towards anything.
Well, there's some people in combat sports who have increased their brand by talking about fights that didn't seem possible. They were able to maybe get those fights at some point. But yeah, I see if this is indeed what she's doing. I see what she's doing. I think it's pretty stupid, but I kind of do. I do think I can see what she's doing. So let's bounce on. I think we only got one Ask Us Bro question. I took note of it. Let's see here. You always know when I are tired of talking about combat sports, they start posting NBA statistics in the chat. So, but one person is not tired of talking to combat sports, and it's Sean Singletary, because he gave us an Ask Us Bro question. He says, who are your three favorite boxing and MMA fighters of all time?
So 3 of each?
I think he wants 3 of each. I think that's what he means. That's pretty simple for me. Like that I can roll that off the top of my head pretty easy. My 3 favorite boxers of all time are Roy Jones, Andre Ward, and Sugar Ray Leonard. That's just easy.
Yeah. So mine would be Roy Jones, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah, I can dig it. As far as mixed martial arts, that's pretty easy too for me. my three favorite fighters are John Jones, Tyron Woodley, and Demetrius Johnson. Those are my three favorites.
My three favorites would be Anderson Silva. I have a lot of fighters that I do like though. A lot of fighters I like. In terms of to watch, John is my favorite to watch ever.
Yeah.
Obviously, John is a person. He's made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And has admitted that he doesn't have the greatest character.
Yeah.
But as a fighter, yeah, I really do like watching John. Anderson Silva overall is probably, my favorite. And what would be my last one? Gets competitive after that. I have to think about that one for a while. It gets competitive.
For me, like usually I don't like people who are just super dominant. Like it's not that I shouldn't say I don't like. Let me roll that back. Those people don't tend to be my favorites, right? Usually the people who tend to be my favorites are people who are who've been through something. They had to have some sort of comeback story, whether it was of their own doing or not. The people who I latch on to as my favorites are usually somebody who is maybe not that easy to like, right? So they become my rally and cry connection type of a person, right? So Tyron Woodley has never been respected in the UFC. He's never been given the credit that he truly deserves as one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time. He's even when he wins, he gets criticized, right? And so he's also, because I'm an urban African American, right? He's one of the few urban African Americans in mixed martial arts. So I draw a connection to that because most of the African Americans in mixed martial arts don't act anything like me. They don't move like me. They don't talk like me. It's, they don't. And because I see that connection with him, that and his skill level and the fact that he's not getting respect, that drew me to Tyron Woodley really, really early on, so I've never not rooted for Tyron Woodley. John is just amazing. John is just me and John don't have anything in common except we're both two tall black men, and that's about it. But John is just so freaking good that it's just, I am literally in awe of how good he is at fighting. So that's where the love for John comes in. And then as far as Demetrius doesn't get respect. He doesn't get respect. He is very likely the greatest mixed martial artist in the world. It's between him and John, in my opinion. But he's little, and he suffers from size bias, which is prevalent in the United States, which is one of the biggest reasons why he wanted to go to one championship, where the smaller weight classes are far more appreciated because people are generally smaller in these countries. So and his nerdcore movement is respected, right? And you mix in the fact that he doesn't get respect and that he is freaking brilliant, and the fact that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the dude is just, it's just something about the way this guy fights is just amazing to watch. So all of those things, that's why they're all three of those guys are my favorites. And it's weird because they're all three different guys, very different types of people. But those three guys are my favorite mixed martial artists. Sugar Ray Leonard is the great fighter that I grew up on. And
yeah, that was what it was for me. I watched a lot of tapes of his. And, I could have honestly thrown Hagler into that because Hagler was the bad guy I grew up with. So I liked him, but I liked him as a heel.
I never liked Hagler. I respected Hagler. I respected him, and I knew how outstanding he was.
I disliked him.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to watch him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by liked. That's kind of the same thing with John to a degree. John Jones. It's like I like Anderson Silva. He does, Wing Chun and actual MMA matches. That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
true martial artist, right?
Right.
John, excellent martial artist, super creative as a fighter. Probably the greatest of all time. There's really not a lot of evidence that he isn't the greatest of all time. And because the only fight he ever lost is a fight he's beaten a guy to death the wrong way
Yeah, he got
for
disqualified
too
for 12 to
long
6. For 12 to 6 elbow.
in a fight that probably should have been stopped 3 elbows ago.
Yeah, he was.
So
Yeah,
so with John, it's just his relentless excellence as a martial artist that it's like I have to watch him, even though again some of the things he's done, he'll tell you himself he's not proud of it, and I wouldn't want him representing the sport. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But the other guys, it's just too much of a mixed bag. Like George St. Pierre is fantastic. I never found his fight style particularly charisma, but he's so well rounded. Like I appreciate his greatness. Um, there's guys that I have every reason to dislike, and they aren't that good. But for some reason, watching their fights, I was just always interested. Like Josh Koscheck. Like Koscheck, no one should root for Josh Koscheck. He seems to be a jerk, and he's not even that great. But he's just always interesting. You know what I mean? It's always interesting to watch.
Josh,
Matt Hughes, I don't know if I've missed that many Matt Hughes fights, but I rooted for him to lose in every single one.
yeah. I actually liked Matt
Obviously,
Hughes.
we're all rooting for him now.
Yeah. I actually liked Matt Hughes. Josh Koscheck, I never dug. Josh Koscheck, one of the two most indelible images in my head related to Josh Koscheck are actually both not very good for him. I remember him getting knocked completely off his rocker by Tyron Woodley. I remember him getting choked so disgustingly that a big glob of slob came out of his mouth on his jaw. That was horrible. And then I also remember him dominating Paul Daly and Paul Daly sucker punching him after the fight. So like walked up to him, bow. And I remember Dan Miragliotta going, Paul, are you kidding me? Paul, are you kidding me?
Probably is. Honestly, it's probably Rashad Evans is my third.
Yeah.
You know what it is about Rashad? Rashad had the most unexpected career for me. I watched him on The Ultimate Fighter. He was a little out of shape. He had I believe, Michigan background.
I don't think it's Michigan. It's a collegiate. It's an NCAA background, but I don't think it's Michigan.
Okay, but he had the NCAA background, and you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. I can't stand not to know.
Yeah, not to know. But when he was doing it, it was like he was a wrestler. He wasn't that great of a striker. He was a little out of shape. But when he was at his most dominant, he was in incredible shape, fighting undersized, knocking people out. It was so much work to transform himself into the Rashad Evans that was a champion that it was just like remarkable.
Rashad Evans is also one of the single nicest dudes you will ever meet.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's probably Rashad Evans.
Yeah, he is like you would think that it was Michigan State. It was Michigan State. You would think that Rashad Evans was like a dude just coming up in the sport. If you met him now, he's a UFC Hall. He's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
For sure.
But you would think that when you met him, you would think that he's just some guy who's cleaning the mats kind of a guy. Just the nicest or super humble guys you ever want to meet. Just a really nice guy. I never did. The only time I disliked Rashad Evans was against when he fought John Jones. Because I've never rooted against John Jones ever. Yeah. So
I actually felt bad for him in that because that was a fight he really, really did not want because they'd shared camps and he was like, he
didn't talk like he didn't want it. He didn't talk like he didn't want it.
He complained a lot about it before.
I'm talking about there was a lot of nasty trash talk leading up to that fight.
Yeah, but the part of the reason the trash talk came out was because it was supposed to be more of an Askren Woodley thing, where it's like, we're going to keep this arranged so I don't have to deal with you because we know too much about each other. And this is a fight that it's not the same as me fighting some other opponent, considering we trained together. And that was part of what we talked about when I brought you into my gym.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you crazy girl just came in the chat. She cracked me up.
What up, crazy?
She said she saw the title Claressa and she said we thought we was talking about her. No, not unless you over there saying you can beat Keith Thurman And Gennady Golovkin, we're not talking about you, Crazy Joe. So,
What up, Crazy?
you know, but yeah, I mean, so you guys know, and you guys, I can talk about combat sports forever, and I mean, it
Yeah.
it truly,
Icy type. We covered the playoffs at the top of the show. So
yeah,
as soon as this stream is over, you can catch that right at the beginning.
yes, sir. It truly is. Uh, it might be my boxing and MMA might be my favorite sports to discuss, honestly. As much as I love talking basketball, baseball, football, but I don't know. It's something about combat sports.
Only
It's something
reason
about it.
he don't like talking basketball right now is because Jimmy Butler's in the playoffs and Derrick Rose ain't.
That's not why. That's not
You
why.
see it in his eyes. Look at his eyes,
I
y'all. Y'all
actually
see it.
have, I'm really enjoying the postseason. I don't have a real rooting interest. I don't.
I noticed when Jimmy was doing his thing, he was the only good player on the Sixers for a good stretch in Game 1, and you
yeah.
tweeted the one play where he got faked out.
No. I tweeted a couple things after that. I
Oh
also
yeah.
said that it is funny that the Sixers look their worst when Jimmy is at his best.
Look at the hatred coming off you right
I'm
now,
just trying to say
like steam.
it's hey, I called it like I saw it. Just think about it. Think about look at the game
No,
that they
what
look at the
happened was they were playing terrible and Jimmy stepped up.
and Jimmy stepped up. But Jimmy started. But see, here's the thing, and this is not a Jimmy conversation. I'm gonna say this one thing and then I'm gonna let it go. There are some great players, right? And I'm not calling Jimmy a great player because I don't think he's a great player. I think he's a really good player. But
I agree.
there are some great players who know how to take over for a stretch, right? And then they elevate everybody else, right? And so they spurred the comeback or they spurred or pushed their team through the tough spot. But then they were able to elevate everybody else and bring everybody in. I'll give you a perfect example. Michael Jordan, the double nickel in Madison Square Garden, right? Bulls were playing terrible in that game for a stretch. Mike had to go off and do what he did. But at one point in the game, when the Knicks started to really clamp down, and he might have had like 48 or 49 at that point, he started making plays, getting other guys involved. The biggest bucket of the game is Mike dishing off to Bill Winnington for a dunk under the basket after he drew all of the attention. When Jimmy takes over, it's screw everybody else. I got it. And it makes him look great. But if you look at the games that he does that, they generally don't win. They generally don't win because he's doing it by himself. And that very much matches what we've seen of his personality. He is a go off on my own individual kind of guy. It's one of the biggest reasons why I don't think he'll ever be one of the best players on a championship team.
That is quite the story you painted there.
I
Well,
just think
Brett
it's what it
Brown, their
is.
coach, said Jimmy was the only adult in the room.
Well, what
And
else is Brent going to say? He's going to say, I don't
he can
like
say
that.
a lot of other things.
Yeah. But see, I think sometimes I think a good coach protects their embattled star. If I'm a
His
coach,
stars ain't in battle; they spoiled.
One of them's fat and the other one's rebellious. So they both probably rebellious. But the thing about, I know that if I'm Brant Brown or I'm Jimmy's coach, I know everybody's always talking about Jimmy's attitude and he's this, he's that. Even if I think that, when I'm in the media, I'm not ever going to say that. I'm going to say the exact opposite because I want to.
So you think he was lying?
I'm not saying he was lying, but I think sometimes you can accentuate a positive moment from somebody in an effort to build them up or an effort to protect them. That's all I'm saying.
It looked like that he was telling the truth there, specifically because one of the things that happened with that team was when they went into the second half of Game 2, and Jimmy said that the coach came in and was yelling at them. He said, "I love that." So that's the other side of it that shows that it might be some substance to what Brett Brown was saying, that when Brett Brown played the tough guy, Jimmy had his back.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jimmy likes that. Jimmy likes
and
that
I'm
type
sure
of.
there was other players in the locker room that was pouting.
They probably were. Maybe they were. I mean, I'm not saying that the other players are right in Philly. Clearly,
so you're saying
clearly
Jimmy's right.
Clearly, no, I'm not saying that either. I don't know what Jimmy said. I know what Brent Brown said that Jimmy said. But I'm saying that you can tell from looking at the leadership that the 76ers have in terms of their better players. there's a lot of maturity that still needs to take place with Ben Simmons,
Absolutely,
with
100%.
Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They're not going to win until those two guys mature. So, all right, guys, we're going to do a hard stop. We're going to try to make sure that we can keep our show at 2 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log these Ask Us Bro questions because many of them are evergreen. So we can still get to these. I appreciate everybody that came through and dropped those questions because we're not going to ignore them. I am actually in the process right now of copy and pasting these suckers into a document. And anybody that knows me knows that I am quick to copy and paste something into a document. That is what I do. So I appreciate everybody watching. Nelson, did you want to give a parting shot? I never give you an opportunity to give a parting shot. You know what? But one of these Ask Us Bro questions I got to ask now. But I got to answer now because by the next time they see us, this person's already going to be knocked out. So D. Johnson just asked, was it going to be Amir Khan or Terrence Crawford? Terrence Crawford will score a knockout in the 5th or 6th round. What generally happens with Crawford is that he needs time to download the data. He does that usually through the first 2 or 3 rounds. Once he figures out the timing, because Amir Khan does have really good hand speed. He has good footwork, but he has defensive issues. He has holes in his defense. People always talk about his chin, but the chin is not the biggest problem. The problem is how easy it is to touch. It's easy to get to his chin, and yes, it's not the sturdiest. But if you think about all the times Amir Khan's been knocked out, we haven't seen him get knocked out by soft punches. When he's taking these shots, he's taking mammoth shots. That's a defense problem before it's a chin problem, because you shouldn't be getting hit that cleanly with the type of shots that he's getting hit with. He will be knocked out in the 5th or 6th round. So there's that.
There you go.
All right. All right. So I appreciate everybody watching as usual.
Look at that. My shout out. Just
I thought you didn't have it. I thought you didn't have it. I thought you didn't have it.
One boxing question and he's gone.
Hey, I'm from Chicago, man. Ain't no hesitation, man. You know, you hesitate in Chicago, somebody take your sandwich.
I don't need carbs. Okay. But anyway, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Crazy Girl, Sim Nation, Czar. Make sure y'all are following me and Brian on Twitter at Nelson Blake 2 as UniqueMazique, and follow me on Instagram where I post all of my artwork. And thank you for those of you who have been following me. Much appreciated.
I appreciate y'all following him too, because when people don't follow him, he gets upset, and you got to give him a Snickers because he's not right when he's not followed. Woo! I crack me up. All right,
he mad because I brought up Derrick Rose. Y'all see that? I brought up Derrick Rose. He had to get one in. Derrick Rose ain't in the playoffs. He ain't gonna win 6 man. Look at me tight.
Oh my god!
I remember you just knew he was gonna win 6 man early in the year, boy.
It looked like
knew it.
Like it good, but then I think you sent some negative vibes his way because you have that ability.
It's my fault.
Things happen. So
I think you need to play Blue Williams.
Always. God bless and peace.